that our work session is scheduled to start at 5 p.m., but it actually starts at 6 p.m., right?
Yeah, we do have the executive session though.
Okay. All right, great. I was just trying to figure that out. It wasn't clear from the calendar entry. Thank you.
Okay. Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay.
We're recording, so we're live now.
Well, welcome everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the City of Salem Climate Action Plan Committee to order. It's Monday, August 18th, and it is 1:02 p.m.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi there.
I'm Mickey Varney. I am the chair, and I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
So Linda Nishioka, City Councilor.
Vanessa Nordyke, Ward 7.
Paul Tigan, Ward 1.
Staff and staff members.
Juliana Douglas, Climate Action Plan Manager.
Brian Martin, Public Works Director.
No.
So then, do we introduce guests or is she just?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Go ahead. No. Let's see. And online, who else do we have participating?
Lucy and Selena.
Let's see. Lucy and Selena. Okay.
Selena Barnes, I'm with Mid-Valley Realtors. I was just observing the meeting.
Okay. Thank you for being here today. And Lucy?
Lucy Hitchcock. I'm in Pringle Creek community and work with 350 Dot Ward, Salem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work.
Well, thank you for and over in the
I'm Bobby Kidd. I'm with Chariots. I'm presenting today.
okay, thank you. And
I'm Debbie Miller. I'm with Salem Parks Recreation Advisory Board, and I'm presenting today.
well, again, thank you all for being here today and attending online. First of all, on our agenda is public comment. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
Nobody's signed up yet.
Okay, okay. Let's move on to the approval of the June 16th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Have you all had a chance to read through them? There were a number of questions, answers, etc. Any particular questions? Well, I don't see anyone, so all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any nays? All right, the minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is the Chariots Climate Action Plan Program Update with Bobby Kidd. Bobby, thank you for coming in today. I'm really looking forward to this presentation and hearing more about this climate action plan.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here this afternoon, or yes, this afternoon. Day has flown. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm Bobby Kidd. I'm with Chariots. I've been with Chariots almost 4 years, and I'm the Climate Action Plan Manager for Chariots. And today I'm going to be here to discuss an update on our planning process for the Climate Action Plan. So I'm going to talk briefly about the components that have gone into the planning process, the timeline, where we are today, where we're going, talking about stakeholder engagement. We did a short survey with the public, so I'm going to go over some of those results. And then going into the plan, some of our key approaches, our goal categories, and then we're in public comment right now for the first draft. So I'm going to be talking briefly about that, and of course, any questions. So the climate action plan process was broken down into 3 parts. The first one being our consultant coming group did a deep analysis of our policies, internal, and then, there's ODOTs and then the plans around in the region, including the City of Salem's climate action plan to make sure that our climate action plan is aligned. And also they reviewed our greenhouse gas emissions inventory that was conducted in 2022. And those are all playing into our plan. The next step was to conduct a climate vulnerability and risk assessment. So where or what facilities Chariots has that might be prone to flooding, for instance, or heat islands. And then, so taking an assessment of our facilities. And then we engaged the public, we engaged partners, and then we engaged internal stakeholders as well within Chariots. And all of this is culminating into this first draft that is now live and open to the public to view. So this is a timeline, and actually this was a snippet from about 2 weeks ago, and we've shifted to the right a little bit. So really, the draft climate action plan was indeed completed in July, and then we are continuing and finalizing our stakeholder engagement. But this week, we're actually doing a workshop with our partners or community partners, and we're in our comment period. So if I could move these 3 goals or the red sections over one slot, I wish I could. And then with all this being said, the plan is to have a finalized climate action plan end of September and hopefully adopted by the board at the September board meeting. So we have been working on this well over a year at this point, and it's a very exciting time, and we're excited to get to that to end. But with all that being said, we still have a lot more work to do with all of the stakeholder engagement and feedback and public comment right now, and going through all of those comments. So, there we go. Some of the stakeholders that we've engaged internally would be our board of directors, our executive leadership team, managers, administrative staff, and operational staff. So those are our maintenance staff, our operators, and their leaders and within the operations team. For external stakeholders, City of Salem and City of Kaiser, Marion County, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, the Oregon Department of Transportation, and then our peers, TriMet in Portland and Lane Transit District in Eugene. Those are the partners that we've engaged so far, but on Thursday during our community partner in-person workshop, we're also going to be engaging the Salem Leadership Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce, the Boys and Girls Club, and Willamette University. We reached out to a lot more, but those are the individuals who can come. So during our visioning stage, we did visioning and strategizing, and now we're in the feedback stage. But during our public visioning, we wanted to get a sense of what our writers and community were interested in. So we did a short survey for our writers, and we got 137 responses. Our goal was 100. This was in place of an in-person meeting, so we would have reached about hopefully a dozen in person. So we did a virtual survey instead, hoping to reach more, and we surpassed our goal with 137. The survey was provided in English and Spanish, and it was publicized through multiple outreach channels. And then the data is aligned compared to other Chariot surveys. The Climate Action Plan survey was skewed towards older respondents, women, less diverse, and more frequent writers. So that's something we wanted to keep in mind, that when we're looking at this data, they were mostly writers, so they're on our service, and they're a little less diverse than the ones we typically do for our other surveys. But out of those respondents, 46% were very concerned about the impacts of climate change, and 19% were somewhat concerned. 95% reported that they had experienced some form of extreme weather, and 33% said that extreme weather had impacted their decision to ride with Chariots, whether that be it's too icy or too snowy, don't feel comfortable driving themselves, so they'd get on the bus, or it's just simply too hot, so they can't walk, they would rather take the bus.
Real quick.
Yes.
Nordyke, or, yeah, Nordyke.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we can't even see you.
Councilor Nordyke?
Yeah, there.
Thank you. And if you prefer answering questions at the end, I'm happy to do that. I just want to know, was a survey circulated to riders? For example, were there QR codes on the bus or other notification to people who were sitting on the buses to fill out the survey?
Yes, it was directed for, we did share in social media, but it was mostly directed for our writers. So there were sandwich boards, QR codes, flyers. Our customer service team were passing out information about it. And then we have Opus slides. So we have TV monitors downtown. They also had that information up there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So wrapping up the little survey was the top 3 respondents regarding Chariot's role focus on they're wanting to increase transit ridership, provide transit to heating and cooling shelters, and transitioning to low zero emission vehicles. And what we found interesting was respondents were very aware of the Chariot's electric and CNG fleet, which we didn't necessarily think that they might be well known about that, but they are very in tune to it. All right. So the plan. There we go. So the plan is broken down into 3 key approaches to climate action. Number 1 being the direct emission reductions from Chariot's fleets and infrastructure. So what fleet modifications that can we do in order to lower greenhouse gas emissions? The second one being behavioral change focused on increasing ridership to reduce regional greenhouse gas emissions. And the third one being infrastructural and community-wide climate adaptation and resiliency. So that's where really the partnership piece comes in with other community-wide efforts. So those are our 3 key approaches. Then we have 7 umbrellas for goals. And I'm not going to go into every single goal. So I thought I'd go over the 7 goal categories because within the plan that is now public, if you so choose to go through and look at it and provide any feedback, that'd be great. But the goal categories are about ridership or increasing ridership, fleet diversification. Right now we have renewable natural gas, we have diesel, and we have battery electric bus. So right now we do have a pretty diverse fleet. And instead of going for one category in the future, we're thinking that diversification is actually more resilient. And then 3 is infrastructure resilience. So our current building the infrastructure, taking an assessment of them and what do we need to do to make them more resilient. 4 is marketing, those campaigns that we can do to raise awareness about Chariots in general, but more specifically about what we do for the environment. 5 is focusing in on those partnerships, City of Salem being one of them, working for City of Salem's climate action plan and our climate action plan and working together. 6 is showing progress, and 7 is operational sustainability. And that includes a little bit of financial in that piece as well.
Can I ask a quick
Yes,
question?
yeah.
I'm just curious, on the fleet diversification, you
Yes.
mentioned diesel, are they using biodiesel?
R99, yes,
Okay.
renewable 99.
Okay, thank you.
For diesel, it's good diesel.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the last slide I have for you today before we get to questions is, I've already mentioned this before, but we are in the public comment period for our climate action plan first draft. And it opened August 11th and it closes next Monday, so August 25th. And we send it out via our Big Canvas email list. It's also on social media. It's also on our website. And then I saw Juliana shared it with this group as well. If you have a chance or would like to spread the word, we're looking for public comments or any feedback on the plan. The only thing this plan is missing at this point are the logistical, like intro letter from our board president or GM. And then also too, there's gonna be more granular details and actions to get us to those strategies. But that is something we're currently developing and we'll use the feedback to develop as well. All right. Are there any questions?
Well, that was a great overview. I appreciate it. Councillor Tigan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great overview. I'm curious. I'll be honest, I flipped through the material, didn't read it in depth in prep for the meeting, but when you talk to members of the community, what is the number one way Chariots can essentially like have a bang for their buck when it comes to climate action and impact? Like, what's the thing that is going to have the greatest impact?
It was ridership.
Just that'd be my instinct. Just increasing ridership is
which is a huge part of the plan. Mm-hmm.
Great. But it's also like you have to motivate people to do it. Like I
Yes.
can understand why, like, okay, we're gonna switch over our fleet because that's within our zone of control, but motivating people to ride the bus and use transit services is really where the most impact would be.
Absolutely. No, that's so true. And then our marketing section of our goals, really, the campaigns are specifically not only about resiliency and climate action plan, but also getting people on the bus, because that all plays in together. So our marketing campaigns would be geared towards that.
Is that why people take the bus? Because to have a climate impact? Like,
Some
because you
some
think
do.
that's gonna be the motivator?
Not everybody, but some do. We do a community value survey and a customer satisfaction survey yearly. And there is a small percentage of people who do it for environmental reasons, but majority of time that is not the reason. But it does affect some people's decision.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Counselor Nishioka.
Thank you. So I'll expand on that. Thank you, Paul. So trying to market the idea of some people are concerned about climate action, I would think that there would be some other major factors such as length of time waiting, the place that they're waiting. So I'm wondering if there's anything in the plan to maybe improve the waiting for environment. And also, again, I know that Chariot's working on trying to make sure the routes can move faster so that people can not need to take a long period of time to get to
Exactly.
where they're trying to go.
Yes, part of wanting to increase ridership is the service and frequency. So getting people where they want to go in a timely manner and where they need to go and want to go. So part of one of the strategies is a comprehensive operations analysis, which is we're in the process of trying to achieve that right now, and we're deep diving into every single route in order to make it more user friendly, which in theory would hopefully make people want to use the service more and increase ridership.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Yes.
Madam Chair, do you have like ridership increase targets, like targets for the increase in ridership over the next 5 years or something like that? How do you hold yourself, like set a goal?
Yeah, so we have an overarching strategic plan for the organization, which part of it is service enhancements and what I was just talking about, the comprehensive operations analysis. But in addition to that, our planning team at Chariots, they do quarterly reports on ridership. And part of those quarterly reports and their year-end reports involve goals for specific routes and increasing or maintaining ridership. I can't speak to like a 5-year goal for ridership, but we analyze ridership daily. I mean, we have a whole team doing that. I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, I might not be the person to answer it because our planning team would have more specific information about ridership.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just in terms of for the climate plan specifically, though, if you were able to say, you know, a 50% increase in ridership over the next 5 years would replace X number of, you know, single person trips in a car, like that kind of modeled analysis, then you would be able to say, well, if we got a 10% increase, it'd be this. If we got a 25% increase, it'd be this. That part, you know, I think would, I don't know, it just seems like an important element. If this is where your climate, you know, bang for your buck is going to be, that would feel important to this plan too.
Thank you. That's a great point, and I'll take that back. I appreciate that.
I wanted to add something onto that. Are the ridership goals, are they by rider, or is it a proportion of population or a proportion of area, service area or something?
So we don't specifically have numbers associated with ridership increase goals in this plan.
Okay.
So we don't have, you know, per population or per person or region or anything like that at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with that feedback about a specific percentage, maybe we could go back and add an action or a strategy to the plan and get that information.
Okay, okay, yeah, I'm thinking of that.
We
as a-
usually go by routes as well, route percentage of rights.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Just to interject real
Yeah.
quick, one of the things that we talked about was aligning the reporting and the marketing messages to meet some of our other goals. So like for the transportation system plan, to have it more aligned with other things that we are going to be doing. So that's one of the things that I think made it to the plan is aligning those.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I have so many questions. Can I keep asking them?
I appreciate them. I love them.
Okay. I am curious, the ridership part aside, now thinking about your climate vulnerability elements of your plan, the two ones that kind of stand out of memory are improving sort of bus shelters and places where people are waiting for heat. And then can you talk a little bit more about the flood vulnerability part? Both of these feel like they have a little bit more of a direct tie to city infrastructure, city decision-making, rights-of-ways, and things like that. So I'm curious if you could start with the flood vulnerability, how you assess that and what the interaction is with the city in terms of decision-making or planning or anything like that.
Right, so our consultant Cumming Group did the assessment and they were specifically looking at our facilities, and the one that popped up in the near a flood zone is our Del Webb maintenance facility in our operations headquarters. And so that at this point has been highlighted as a potential. And then now the process says, okay, what do we do about it? So we don't have any plans in place at this point. The assessment in itself was a step forward for us, right, to be able to identify that.
Okay.
And working with the city so far, in regards to flooding or those heat zones around bus shelters, not necessarily, I don't believe any conversation's been had yet. Or if they have, I was not a part of it.
My suggestion there is having experienced from a neighborhood association standpoint, sort of the arrival of a new bus shelter that wasn't necessarily anticipated by the homeowner whose parking strip the bus shelter went in front of.
Right.
As always, talk to your neighbors sooner rather than later. But I would also encourage Chariots to work with the urban forester and the folks who manage right-of-ways on behalf of the city to work on, as soon as you can, passive shade for these bus stops in terms of planting trees that are near them, things like that, of looking 10 years into the future when a tree might be 20 feet instead of paving, putting out new concrete and new, actual bus shelters. We don't necessarily need those in every city, every stop or anything like that, but there's different ways to do it. So that'd just be my feedback, is talk to your neighbors and think of passive ways to improve shade at these stops too.
All really good points and good
Yes,
questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Just on that total flooding and environmental impact, one of your slides, it almost looked like a heat map of the different colors, and I noticed the airport, or the area around the airport, was red, and I was curious what those colors resemble.
It's just the hotter, it's called a heat island, and so in Salem, that's one of the biggest heat islands that came from the assessment because of all the cement. And we have bus shelter or bus stops in that area. So part of the plan would be then to how to address those heated shelters during the summer, or not only, it might not even be shelters, but a bus stop in that area. So maybe adding a shelter might be an improvement, or a tree.
Or a tree, or even other
Foliage of some kind.
decorative ways of shading.
Yeah.
Good points.
So just so everyone is aware, City of Salem and Chariots meet monthly to discuss specifically plannings, operations. I don't think that we've expanded it to the neighborhood association, so that's a valid critique that we could look into, but we do coordinate those efforts monthly.
And I'm now going to be a part of them, so I'm very excited about that.
Not long ago, this is just more statement wise, thank you. I received a great number of emails from students in high school, and I think it was a class project to reach out to your counselor. And a majority of those were about fixing the buses. You know, like they fix up the stops where they're going, have, you know, trash cans so that they have some place to put. And I tried to explain that who's going to be responsible for pickup anyway. And also just questions about ease of use and length of time. And so I joyfully got to say, well, you need to reach out to Chariots. This is not a question for me, but kind of to your point, I think it would be important to be coming to the neighborhoods and even to the schools, because I do know that a lot of, especially high school kids, are using the bus or the buses, and so I think that that's another area to
Absolutely.
basically interact with.
Absolutely, yeah, our youth ridership is tremendous, and so that's a great point about engaging youth in schools. And then what's interesting is you point out those rider amenities, you know, the garbage cans and things like that. And that is actually mentioned in the plan because that is all about increasing ridership as well. If our customers or our riders are more comfortable, then they might be more likely to use the service.
Right. Okay. Councillor Nordijk?
Thank you. Great discussion, folks. I would love to see more bus shelters for folks. But I know that depending on which city you're in, there are some bus shelters where it's just a long flat bench, and that can incentivize people to sleep on the bench. And there are other communities where they develop benches, but they have, I don't know, almost like armrests and other things to encourage people to sit, but to discourage people from sleeping or otherwise monopolizing an entire bench so that others can't use it. I don't know what kind of design Chariots is using for the provision of future benches or other sorts of shelters, but I would encourage folks to take that into consideration, because a lot of time we don't want any single person monopolizing our benches. We want to encourage ridership, including folks who may have mobility issues. So I want them to be able to sit down if they can.
Absolutely.
Do you have any comment on the design of benches? Is that planned or is that in the works? I'm just curious.
I personally do not have any comments. I do know that planning is, it's called a bus shelter improvement plan. And they have bus shelters and stops identified for several years in the future. And each year there's a certain percentage of them that they're improving, and they prioritize the importance based upon mobility needs and other accessibility needs.
Mhm.
To the benches and the planning, I'm going to take the notes back, but I don't have any comments on that. But thank you so much for sharing that. I've seen those in other cities before. I find them very interesting.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you all for the discussion. Are there any other additional questions from anyone? No? Okay.
I appreciate everybody's time tremendously, and if you ever have any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much for coming and presenting the information. Love it. Okay, next on our agenda is the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board recommendation for CAP implementation. Member Debbie Miller from Salem Parks Board will be presenting the information. Thank you.
I don't have a little thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Okay.
What do I press?
Just hit the next.
Yep.
one. There we go.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so I'm Debbie Miller. I'm a member of the Salem Parks Recreation Advisory Board. And I'm here to talk about our year-long project we've had with 3 committees working to try to help promote climate action plan goals. So the SPRAD, as you guys probably know, provides recommendations and guidance to the city regarding our park and recreation lands, facilities, and programs. So a little over a year ago, we decided we would like to use some of our time and our energy to help support advancing some aspects of the Salem Climate Action Plan. Let's see if I need to advance this. Oh, sorry. There it is. Okay. So we formed 3 research committees and we went through a bunch of topics and decided on these 3 topics. To explore innovative policy opportunities to support the city's climate action plan and help achieve its greenhouse gas goals. All right, so the committees were related to low carbon materials and capital projects, electric equipment use, and climate friendly transportation. And the results of one of these committees I talked about a couple months ago at this meeting. So the recommendations specifically relate to the parks because that's our purview. But it's also applicable to throughout other city departments. So we're trying to present this to the city. We did come up with a letter after reviewing the committee findings. We developed the recommendations we're going to talk about. We reviewed and wrote the letter, and everybody should have gotten a copy of that letter. And that's kind of what I'm presenting today to see input on that and possibly support for that. So this letter is to the city, it's to the city council, and it will, we believe in doing this will help the city achieve its greenhouse gas reduction goals and prepare our community for a climate smart future. So we are asking for support and also not just support, but also input from the Climate Action Plan Committee to try to help us improve if there's anything we can come back or change. So the next thing is I'm going to talk about our 3 committees. So the first committee was low carbon materials in capital projects. So we basically came up from this is mostly focused on cement, but it can be generalized to other things, but mostly we focused on cement because that's a really big contributor. So we came up with these 3 recommendations to evaluate the embodied carbon. So as a part of the project, what we should be doing when we have a new project is scope and procurement is to assess the embodied greenhouse gas emissions of materials that are used in capital improvement projects, particularly concrete, because that's such a difficult material. The materials and construction techniques with lower carbon footprints should be prioritized wherever feasible. And that relates to the Climate Action Plan MW05. So that's one. The second one was to monitor the advances in cement and concrete technology. I learned a lot about this listening to this report from the committee. But there are a lot of emerging technologies that may not be available right now, but that are coming. And this includes carbon injected cement and carbon capture, and sequestration solutions at cement plants. So these definitely have the potential to significantly reduce emissions from one of the highest emitting construction materials, which is concrete. And that's related to MW05. And the last one in the low carbon materials is to support the use of nature-based carbon sequestration strategies. So basically, that's just recognizing the dual role of the urban tree canopy and the natural landscapes as carbon sinks. So unlike carbon capture technologies, carbon sequestration through ecosystems like forests, green spaces, and healthy soils offers a natural long-term solution for offsetting emissions. The city capital projects and site development should seek to preserve, restore, and expand tree canopy and vegetative cover wherever possible as part of an integrated climate resilience planning that's related to FD08, the Climate Action Plan. So those are the 3 low carbon materials and capital projects recommendations we came up with. And as I said, these apply. We are endorsing them for the Parks Board, but these are easily can be used by the whole city. So we hope that they could be adopted as well. Okay, so the next thing was the electric equipment use, which is what my committee that I brought to this here a couple months ago. So this relates to EN37 in the Climate Action Plan, and this one's really simple. We're not throwing away equipment; we're just procuring battery electric tools for replacements when a suitable battery electric tool is identified with equivalent or improved operational capacity and within cost premiums. So we need to prioritize battery electric tool procurement over gas equipment as we replace things. Kind of a gentle way to do that. Okay, so the last committee was a climate friendly transportation committee, and there was 4 recommendations that came out of that. One of them was to plan ahead and make this a part of the planning and not something that we think of later on, like incorporating EV ready wiring and charging stations as a default for parking lots and in parks and throughout the city, hopefully. And then establish a policy for EV specific parking spot allocation and future parking lot developments. So these all should be hopefully in the beginning of the plan and not added on later on. And align the EV charging installation with park improvement projects. So this is kind of tangentially related to CAP strategy TL26. So that was one. Second one was to, of course, encourage the use of alternative transportation methods to access parks, walking, biking, and busing. through the development of communication and outreach materials. Maybe consider partnering with Chariots and local businesses to highlight the interconnectedness of parks and small businesses. We do have a lot of parks that allow people to go through the parks, to be able to reach things, to work, and that type of thing. So it's a good idea to make people aware of that. The third thing is prioritizing bike access in future park and city development plan updates. So prioritize bike access and parking in the initial phases of the park planning and development, not later on, but initially, so it can be planned for. And maybe consider revising the current policies on the ratio of bike to vehicle parking. I think it's about 20 or 30 to 4, something like that right now. And so if a family of 4 comes in, they take all the spots. They may be having more of those available for when larger groups are coming. And then continue efforts to liaise with Chariots on their ongoing micromobility study. And that's related to Climate Action Plan Strategy TL09. So those are the 3 recommendations that we have in the letter that I sent to you guys. But we do want to underscore the vital role that Salem's parks, natural areas, and tree canopy play in building urban climate resilience, supporting public health, and improving the quality of life. These benefits will only grow more critical in the face of climate change. So thank you guys for considering these recommendations, and we would really like any input that the committee has that we can work on, we can research, we can come back with. Thanks.
Wow, well, thank you. That was a lot of information. I wanted to say how much I appreciate the Salem Parks Board and all that work to put, putting this all together and what you've been working on and the information, and working along with council and the climate action plan to work toward climate action goals together. I see this letter as a real call for action for policy development. I appreciate the recommendations very, very much, and the significance and the relationship to our identified gap strategies, especially pointed out. So thank you. Okay. So are there any questions or comments? Councillor Tigan.
Thank you, Councillor Varney. Great presentation. I know that EN 37 about more electrified equipment has been a topic of conversation a couple times, even last week or last month for the climate action plan or our last meeting. I really do support that. I do think also the city has the potential to play a leadership position there in terms of demonstrating to people the potential and the value for that. I was actually in Pasadena for work a couple weeks ago, and there was a city crew cleaning up downtown Pasadena using a leaf blower. I'll say it wasn't very quiet. It was electrified. It was cleaner. But boy, it could displace some air. But it was, I think it's one of those things where people see them in action and see them being used by a work crew, and it feels more viable. And so I think for some of our, well-loved spaces, if folks see people at Riverfront Park, Bush, downtown using electrified equipment, that it would demonstrate the power of that. And so just kind of that's almost more of a hat tip to Brian and the staff than to SPRAB. But I think there's power in being a leader and demonstrating the usefulness of those tools out in the public.
Really good points. Mm-hmm. Are there any plans for SPRAB for additional community outreach with anything about the committees? Because I know a lot of you are going to neighborhood associations.
Yeah, this isn't part of what we're doing for the neighborhood associations.
Okay.
But, there is, in my neighborhood association, we're going to talk about the leaf blowing ban. We've talked about that before.
Okay.
And I don't think there's anything specifically for electrification of landscaping equipment in general. But it's just like Councillor Tigan said, seeing people not using the electric equipment
yes,
also has a really negative people seem to bring that up a lot, like, yeah, I thought the crew was cutting down the trees and, with the electric equipment and they're not using that smelly one and the noisy one, yeah. And the electric ones are noisy, they definitely are. But they're overall a lot less noisy. They don't fall into the same zone, so.
Well, I understand. I think the education and outreach component is important so that folks, they may see us using the gas-powered equipment, but so they have an understanding that we are one by one doing the replacement
Transition.
process to transition
Yeah, I mean, if
over.
that became a policy, that would be something to advertise, but right now it's just an idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So you requested support. What does that really look like from members? Oh, Councilor Nordyke, go ahead.
Sure. Although I really loved your question, Chair Varney, and I'd love to see where they answer that. So I hope we don't lose sight of that. No, I was just kind of curious what, Debbie, what do you have in mind when you say finding alternatives, lower carbon footprint alternatives to using concrete? I'm just kind of curious, what kind of substances does SPRAB have in mind? And then I would love, of course, to see, Chair Varney's question answered as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think it's an alternative to concrete, it's an alternative to the type of concrete. So if you get the injected carbon concrete, which I think is available in Washington, I don't think we have a lot of places here that do that, but it's an amazing technology. It actually, from what I understand, makes the concrete a better product, a stronger product. But it technically, you have to store the carbon and you have to inject it at the right time. And it involves, there's some mechanics involved in that, but it really is a good product and has a lot of potential from what I understand.
Okay.
Sure. Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see that you did mention carbon injected, of course, in your slides. I'm sorry, I didn't know whether you meant consider carbon injected cement and alternatives like more PAFs made out of other materials. So thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate that. And I also just want to echo how much I fully support everything we can do to preserve and restore and expand tree canopy and vegetative cover. I think that is really important. It's one of the best features of many of our parks. And so to the extent we can support that, I'm all in for sure. And I've participated in tree plantings. I know Chair Varney has participated in tree plantings and perhaps other members of our committee, but it's wonderful to see, Debbie, as I know you have firsthand, how many people are willing to roll up their sleeves and help out when the city staff are ready to do more tree plantings in places like Minto Brown and so on. So thank you.
And just a little bit more expansion on the low carbon concrete. It can also be concrete that has used like waste processes like slag, or one of the other options is to have it be recycled concrete. We have a park that's getting renovated and they were looking to see if it's something that they could have recycled on site to reduce costs and also to reduce the carbon footprint. A lot of these are just wait and see and keep an eye out for because the technologies aren't readily available enough. But just to be mindful that there will come a time when it would make sense to transition.
Yeah, and just making sure that people look for that. When you have a project, try to see, is there anything new, is something else happening? So yeah, I think. And also where we get our energy from, because the biggest thing with concrete is the heating of the limestone and the materials. So we already have kind of a little lower carbon footprint because we have a lot of renewable energy compared with other states. So, getting it more from places that have lower carbon footprint would help as well.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Councilor Tigan, did you have a question?
I just dropped in the chat a website related to the development of wood products being a concrete replacement called nanocellulose wood. It's being developed at the Oregon State University, and of course has a strong tie to other folks in the Pacific Northwest. So just something else to monitor.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So in terms of, go ahead.
I had a question. You were speaking about ensuring that we have more bicycle parking at the parks and opportunities for EVs to charge. I think a lot of, maybe some parks, but not all, would have the infrastructure for those electrified units. But I know that, you know, in planning, because we don't, parking is as a developer chooses, so this is outside of parks, as a developer chooses, but I know that we encourage them to include EV. But what I don't know, and maybe you can answer this, Brian, is in the parks master plan, when more parking is available, are they considering, I know this is not in your world right now, but do you know if they are?
So, oh, go ahead.
If you know, that's great, because I don't know. Normally there's we follow the planning code.
So the planning codes do have some like EV ready for certain development. Parks normally falls outside of that development because they have so much green space, so they meet different categories. But this was asking to just like consider it. It's not always going to be a yes, but if it would make sense to have something be EV ready, even if you don't put a charge station on there, and it's only like incrementally more to wire for that. That was the intent behind the ask there. And so again, it's just to consider, not necessarily build out to that.
I will tell you that on the steering or on the Civic Center retrofit and figuring out Peace Plaza, which is a park, there's going to be some increased parking availability there. And I have specifically asked if we could have more EV, since we'd be in the process of putting more electric availability in that area, and also bicycle parking. So I was looking at it then, but again, it kind of falls in the zone of sometimes it's planning, sometimes it's in parks, and sometimes it's, I guess, meeting a code because of green space. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. We're making efforts.
I appreciate that. So what is the next step we need here? Do we need a motion of support? Do we need to send a letter? I mean, what all does the committee want to do? Anyone? Go ahead, Councilor Nordijk.
I'm happy to sign off on a letter of support. I'm sensing some support for these ideas, but since we happen to have our city manager on the line, it might be, you know, it's always helpful to hear from staff. What do you need from this committee? If this committee is supportive of, you know, giving some oomph to SPRAB's recommendations, and I'm kind of jumping to conclusions here, but I would just like to know, Krishna, is there direction you need from this committee on what to do with SPRAB's recommendations? I would love to hear her perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. What I suggest is I would like to talk to staff about how to kind of move forward with this. And at this point, I don't necessarily need any direction from you, from the council, from this committee, but let me have a discussion with the staff, and then we can always come back and kind of let you know what we need from you. If that works out okay.
Well, I can't speak for the other members of this committee. I'm very supportive of that because I need to know what is the feasibility of these recommendations. And I also want to say I've always been so impressed with staff's ability to locate grants that are specific to our green priorities. So perhaps there are pockets of funding that might be helpful for leveraging or matching or what have you. So that sounds great to me, but of course, I'd love to hear what the other committee members have to say.
Yes, go ahead.
So SPRAB did a fantastic job of working with myself and other staff on understanding the feasibility going into it. So I think a lot of these, if not all of these, are already things that we are working on. It was just solidifying it with the committee and to make sure that there's kind of that breadcrumb for if there's any staff turnover or just to move forward. So I think a lot of this is already being done. I know that parts that I'm working on are already incorporated in this. So there are, most of those are covered.
Okay.
And then I'll just add, I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Juliana. And we can lead by example. I know that a lot of citizens with the Quiet Clean coalition or group, they're wanting to encourage you to have your own landscapers, try to not use diesel blowers and use electric. For many of them, that is very hard because it would mean changing out their equipment and also making sure they had enough power to charge them up. So I think by leading by example, the city demonstrating that it can be done and how effective, as Councillor Tigan was saying, how effective they are, it may present the opportunities for landscapers to also recognize when it's time for them to transition out of their equipment and maybe then be looking at electrified. I think that's a great way. I would hate to be having us say that you have to. So I think by leading by example and encouraging and then having the opportunity to understand how well they can work, that will be a good example. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what it says, is that we're going to demonstrate leadership by doing this. So, and I think it's a really, at least the part I worked on, the staff had a lot of input into that already. They already went through their equipment and they already kind of work towards replacing it whenever the product is as good and is comparably priced. But so I think they already have pretty good input into that, into the electrification of landscaping equipment.
Yeah. Okay. I know that the role of Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is to provide recommendations and guidance to the city and to council. And so I guess I see our role here is the fact that the presentation, the letter has come to us and, we're just sharing, I don't know if we need a vote, but we're sharing that we support the recommendations and just the work that has been done. Councillor Nordyke?
The only other thing I want to mention while we're on the subject of parks, I would be remiss if I didn't give a randomized shout out to the Mission Street Parks Conservancy and their Tuesday Morning Gardeners program. We have an incredible group of volunteers who give their time Tuesday mornings to going above and beyond all of the work that's already done to maintain Bush Park. After our staff go through Bush Park and do a lot of work to keep that park in good working order, the Tuesday Morning Gardeners will go through and weed specific flower beds and help maintain our really unique collection of very rare prized roses. They fundraised for that little gazebo where a lot of couples love to go and exchange their nuptials. So if there's anything we can do to help support more volunteer groups who assist with the beautification of our parks, it would be wonderful to see not just a Mission Street Conservancy, but other groups like that spring up to support our other larger parks in the area. So anyway, just wanted to give that random shout out because they do such phenomenal work. I have friends who are very involved in the Tuesday Gardeners, and we're just so blessed to have folk who are willing to donate their time. And they, for the most part, they all seem to use handheld tools. So it's all very climate friendly what they're doing. So it's, once you buy that pair of trimmers, going like this doesn't emit a whole lot of carbon last I checked. So anyway. So thank you.
Councillor Tigan?
Well, I'll just, share once again that my neighbor's 2:00 Monday afternoon landscapers have showed up. So I need to close my windows so I could hear what's going on in our meeting. Like clockwork, they're very punctual and I appreciate their work. It sounds like staff's already involved with this and it sounds, that there's been some interaction there. I think maybe if there's one thing that we could suggest is perhaps moving the letter that talks about the alignment between SPRAB's goals and the climate action plan and moving that as an information item to the council as a whole, just to provide that information to the remainder of council so people are aware that the analysis has been done and that SPRAB has highlighted the key parts where they see, we could move forward on goals in the climate action plan with the parks operations. And it seems to me the rest of it's underway. But that would be my recommendation.
I think that's a really good
That's an
recommendation.
excellent,
Would you like to make a motion? Move forward as an information?
Sure, I can make the motion.
That would be great.
I move that we forward SPRAB's letter to the entire council via an information item.
I'll second
Second.
that.
Okay,
Either of us.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yep, exactly. Let's see, next on our agenda is reviewing the questions from our June Climate Action Plan Committee meeting and the Climate Action Plan implementation updates.
If it's okay with everyone, I'll just be right here.
Yeah, wherever you're comfortable.
Thank you so much. And I sent out a letter, an email, a month or so ago, just going over, there were so many fantastic questions. I wanted to make sure that we had a chance if anyone had any questions on those. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in, and I will minus this. Okay, so there was a question about if Marion County changed their disposal location, what that would look like. Rates are not my forte, so Marion County will be looking at those rates, and they will be looking to share that with the Salem Solid Waste Committee. That's where that should go. If there are any additional informations or follow-up, I can liaison between the two committees, but otherwise that would probably stay on their end. In terms of the emissions, so just looking at a general calculation, it would be about 28,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalency emitted annually if that proposed location of Columbia Ridge was adopted. And then that would go into the transportation sector, not the solid waste sector, so it would look a little bit different. And currently, we don't have the ability to inventory methane leaks specific to landfill emissions factors. And there is a potential for refining calculations in the future. And if that's not available, we could always just note it in the inventories in the future. Next item is electrification of hand tools. We could create a cost benefit analysis for electrifying hand tools. Specifically, Public Works keeps inventories of that. It could be expanded for an enterprise-wide approach or extrapolated from what Public Works inventories already have. And we can do that with the help of the Electrification Coalition has given us access to a tool for analysis of that, and they've offered to help with some technical assistance. But that is probably a bigger project, so I might suggest having that as a project timeline starting in early 2026. And then there was a question about the zero emissions vehicles first policy, or ZEV policy. And the basics of it are when internal combustion engines should be swapped for either plug-in hybrid, electric, or an alternative fuel when feasible. That is kind of the basis for it. Have some more details on when that threshold would be there. And then finally, the question on the pedestrian and bicycle safety PSA, that grant does include translation for Spanish. So any questions on this before I move on? All right, seeing that, I'm gonna jump over. Okay, so we were approached as part of a sub-awardee to the Electrification Coalition for their Charging Smart certification. And this will include getting some technical assistance and getting some recognition for our work. as well as adding a little bit of work into kind of having that bronze certification. So they have a point classification, and for bronze, you need 8 points. We have almost all of the points that are needed. The last couple things that we would need to do are to adopt a standard EV charging permit process, which our permitting people already have. We just don't have it in a nice website for a checklist. And so that is a kind of low bar. So that's where we're going to start. But we've actually done a lot of things like our ZEEV first policy that are silver or even gold standards. So it's possible that we can move up through the years, but figuring that it might be easier to start with bronze and then move up afterwards. And then for their technical assistance, it actually supports some of our climate action plan work. So transportation and land use 28, which is looking at low and moderate income households being able to transition to EVs, and transportation land use 30, which is looking at having supporting the city-owned fleet transition to EVs. So for the technical assistance, they're providing us a framework for how we will eventually get to heavy-duty charging infrastructure. So they're going to look at something for that for us. And then we're also going to look at creating a document around what other levers the city might have available to encourage EV chargers to be added. Right now we have some EV ready requirements, but we're not seeing enthusiastic charge points being set up. So what other things can the city look at? And so those will both be documents, and if we like them, we can choose to look at implementing parts of them, but there's no requirements for either of those. And then finally, when I told them about what was going on with SPRAB and their recommendations, and that I don't really know how to approach a electrification plan for our hand tools, they were like, I think that we have a tool for that. So they've shared that tool with me, and they've offered some technical assistance help with getting that done. And they were actually kind of excited because they haven't done it either. So learning experience for everybody.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Next, we did some community outreach this summer, and this meets 2 of our climate action plan strategies. One is Natural Resources 20, and that's to promote water conservation. The other is Energy 16, and that's around energy outreach and education. And at the Center 50 Plus, we provided, it was the energy and resource fair. We provided the home energy conservation kits. We had about 100 participants, and they did a survey for the event, and across the board, they had more knowledge of weatherization and energy efficiency after they went. We also partnered with about a dozen community services. So it was really well attended, and that was the first year. So it's fantastic. Wow. Next was the World Beat. And this one, we didn't get a lot of Salem visitors. And so considering that it was over 3 days, it required a lot of staff time, and we didn't get the most participation. I don't know if I would suggest that moving forward, but it was good a couple years ago, so maybe we could reconsider down the road. However, Inglewood Forest Fest, that one was phenomenal. We were busy the entire time. We probably need a little bit more staff to cover that. We had probably well over 150 visitors. Between Rob and myself, we were maybe free for 20 minutes, hit and miss here and there. But it was very busy the entire time. And we gave out 86 conservation kits. And I was asked on what was in these conservation kits. So I have some photos here. I also brought some show and tell if anybody's interested in that as well. But the outdoor water conservation, it's a garden timer, a hand watering tool, a rain gauge, and a moisture meter. Indoor water conservation, it's a low flow shower head, low flow sink head, sink aerator. So the difference between the two would be probably kitchen sink and bathroom sink. And then plumber's tape to install all of that. And then the home energy conservation kit is a window insulation kit, an LED light bulb, a hot water temperature gauge, a furnace or air conditioner filter whistle to let you know when to change your filter, and a switch plate insulator. And just because of the timing of all these things for the Inglewood Forest Fest, we also did some outreach about the drawdown. So our desktop publishing team helped with creating a little FAQ, and we were able to get some of that outreach and also promote water conservation.
Wow.
And then moving forward with our EN12, so this is the comprehensive approach to energy efficiency in municipal buildings. We're working really hard on our municipal energy master plan. We did, this was 2 weeks ago now, we did 21 more buildings that we got audited. These are a couple of photos I snapped. We went on a bunch of rooftops and basements. I saw way too many spider webs. And we got the chance to do audits on some of our weirder or more interesting buildings, like our museums. We did a couple parkades. We also did the airport terminal, or interesting uses of some of our energy in buildings. We went to the 911 call center. We also went to, oh my gosh, why am I blanking that? Oh, the navigation center. And then we, at this audit, we were inventorying equipment, so the heavy use of energy. And then separate from that audit, we did an audit earlier on in the year with Energy Trust of Oregon, and that's for the Strategic Energy Management Program. And for that, we did the police station, Center 50 Plus, library, fire station, and Liberty Parkade, and those were more in-depth audits. And then meeting with this is we also have House Bill 3409, so the building performance standards. So part of the reason why we're focusing on our energy efficiency, just wanted to give some information to everyone. Oregon Department of Energy sent out letters for covered buildings early in July. And there's an exemption, an exemption process, and there's also early adoption incentives. So if people have covered buildings, they should have received those letters. If they haven't, ODO has a process for getting into compliance and just for being aware of that. But we are trying to, with the Strategic Energy Management and the Municipal Energy Master Plan, we're trying to position ourselves to be eligible for some of those early adoption incentives to help get any of our buildings that might not be in compliance up to standards. And then I guess good news, bad news on this one. So Energy 11 is around the Sustainable Business Network. And that one had kind of been in limbo. Marion County had a change in staffing, and they weren't able to kind of fulfill that program with staffing. And so we looked at what we could do to change how that program was being handled. We used that Marion Sustainable Business Network to remain in compliance for opportunity to recycle. So that's one of our solid waste programs. And with them not staffing it, we would not be in compliance, and that's not a good thing. And so I am volunteering to step in to kind of hold us over on that compliance through the end of 2025, when Marion County will look at kind of right sizing their staff or outsourcing that program. And then as long as I was in the lead, Marion County and some of the other communities who also need this for their OTR compliance, they were totally willing to help out with any of the non-Salem businesses that needed like desktop audits and things like that. So that'll be a little bit more work than
a lot of work.
It was a little bit more than what I'd originally put in the work plan for this year. So depending on how that goes, I might see if I need to scale back on a couple items or even just one item, but just so then people are aware. In that, there are 28 recognized buildings and 29 between in process or business enrolled but not in process. So it'll be working with those 29 businesses that aren't quite enrolled, or sorry, aren't quite recognized.
Can I ask really quick? So what is the funding source for all this work that you're doing? Just out of curiosity.
None right now, but we worked with DEQ, the ones who manage the solid waste end of this. And they were willing to reduce the requirements, so I didn't have to do full audits. These should probably take about 15 minutes and just a walkthrough with the organizations. So, and not all of them will probably go through the process, and I won't be responsible for going through that with everyone. So it feasibly could take just a couple hours. But knowing that that's not always how things work out, it'll be just a bit more than I was anticipating, and with less of the outreach and more of the intake work. So kind of just shifting how I would structure that. But it is a climate action plan strategy. So for right now, but it is possible that it would be funded in the future from the Recycling Modernization Act funds, just depending on how that gets
Sure.
sorted out.
I would just add that, so she's covered with the utility fund.
Okay.
Right now, that's how she's paid, so this will just shift her from working on something else to spending a little bit more time on that. So there's no net increase in us paying her more money or having to contribute more. It's just maybe shifting the responsibility a little bit to the side.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
clarification. Okay.
And then the other part to this is, now that I'm kind of responsible for it, I guess, I have access to it, so now I can actually pull reports from it. So from the first 6 months of 2025, we can see how much the kilowatt hour savings, the therm savings, and the CO2 savings have been from this program, and that's only with 28 businesses. So has definitely a good upward potential. Then grant updates. This one came to you in council, I want to say last week. Yes, last week. In actually one of our internal staff meetings for planning, I had brought up the grant for the Community Renewable Energy Grant. I said I didn't have any projects that were at that state, and one of the folks from Urban Development had mentioned that he actually does have a project that is in this area, and it's currently funded. So funding from this could help increase their ability to do other great climate work. So it's from the Urban URA funds, and so it's something that could be applied to some of their other projects, which include, they're looking at evaluating grocery stores and things like that improve walkability, and so that has a lot of great climate impacts. They can improve treescaping and things like that in downtown. So we're really excited for this. Just with the quick turnaround, we are a little bit worried that we won't have everything in place, so we might not be able to submit that application, but they are currently working on getting the solar feasibility study done with that group, so then we can move forward with that application. But really exciting to see that. And finally, we have just more of an FYI than anything else, due to the reconciliation bill. There are some clean energy tax credits that are going to be fast-tracked out of eligibility, and these were originally from the Inflation Reduction Act. So if you were looking forward to taking advantage of some of these, the EV tax credits and the quickest at the end of September. And then there are a number of other ones that end at the end of the year for energy efficient things like heat pumps, and then as well as solar, rooftop solar. And then the link that I have up here actually goes over what all of those changes are from the reconciliation bill, and they also have a calculator on there for residential to see if you're eligible, what the timelines are, and how to go about getting those. All right, and I did finish a little bit early, so we have plenty of time for questions.
Wow. That's a lot of information. Very much appreciated. So questions? Councillor Teigen?
Yeah, this one, Juliana, might just be too specific to have at your hand, but I'm kind of going back to the question from Mr. Shepke and your answer to it. on the haul associated with the waste transport.
Mhm.
And I'm always surprised like how many metric tons things produce of carbon. But I'm kind of thinking about that number 28, that is 28,000, right?
Yes.
And I'm just like, do you have a sense? I know you said it kind of shifts to transportation, but like, do we have a sense of like what percentage of Salem's, waste stream, what kind of carbon footprint it has, and as a percentage, we're adding this much by transporting it that much farther?
So I did look at that, but because you'd be shifting it from transportation, it wouldn't be looking at apples to apples because
Mm.
our current solid waste transportation is allocated to the transportation sector. And so if I were to say that it would add this much to solid waste, it wouldn't quite be accurate and it wouldn't quite reflect that change. I did look at it and I think that the total was that was about 10% of what the total is. It was in the 300,000 range for solid waste emissions.
300.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess my visceral reaction to that, like, and I'm not part of the solid waste committee, and I know Councilor Nishioka and maybe other folks are like, I just, when it comes to like creating a bang for our buck, which is a phrase I've used today already, but like solid waste is such a loser. I mean, there's like no way to get around that by creating waste, you're creating more waste and more carbon emissions. And I know that people really want Coffin Butte closed, that folks wanted the incinerator shut down, but it's like we're just making our solid waste problem uh, more expensive to deal with and actually creating more carbon in the process. And so it just feels like it's a loser on both ends, both from like consumers who are in a very difficult position that their waste costs are going to go up, and we're not actually doing anything to help the carbon situation. So like I know the importance of creating less waste, like that's where the winning solution is when it comes to this stuff. But and I don't know, I just want to express that frustration with the situation. You don't have to respond if you don't want to.
The one area that there is a big bang for your buck in terms of climate is reducing food waste to the landfill. It's actually one of the things that I got my second master's on, so I'm really passionate about that. But that is so much more consumer driven than it is. And so the most comprehensive approach for that is just consumer education, but the average family wastes in 2019 $1,500 annually, and that probably now is well over 2,000. And so it not only would have a big financial impact to those families and those consumers, it also has a multiplier effect on our carbon emissions. So yes.
Can you draw that out a little bit? Like what's you're saying just by individually within families wasting less food or composting waste? Which one are you talking about?
Well, actually, the food waste reduction is talking about buying less. So
yeah,
right now, families are spending a lot of money on food that is never touched.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to avoid. It's not about having people buy less food or eat less food. It's about having them buy and eat the appropriate amount of food and not buy what they aren't going to eat.
They need more 14-year-olds in their house, but just to put it on a like conveyor belt in front of Henry and it's gone. So it's fine. The one thing I would say is we love our composting bucket, and we have a really strong relationship with it in our family on our kitchen counter. And maybe an idea would be to include that in your the kits that you hand out.
Yeah, that could be really cool.
So May I just add something to that?
Please.
So, to your question, the Solid Waste Committee, is certainly reviewing this. And food waste, as Juliana said, is a big component to people, putting it in their trash versus in the green waste. So a lot of education is really, involved. And now with the Recycling Remodernization Act that we're going to be implementing, it's, as Ryan Zink says, we're dialing it up versus switching a lever. And again, a lot of consumer education, but also a lot of onus onto manufacturers and packaging and all of the costs that or the trash that we get from that. The manufacturers will be now responsible for supporting some of that education. So there's a lot to come. And also the methane gas in wet areas is more problematic in the dry areas. And so it's, as everything, it's trying to balance what is the best way. Is it better to send it further away because it will make less methane in the drier environment? So there's so many things to consider, and certainly chime in if I'm misspeaking or not, directing the question. It's just a complex situation, like many things are. And so unless Henry's gonna eat everybody's extra food, I think we're gonna have to keep working on it.
That's great. Yeah. Any other comments? That's really helpful. Thank you. So many parts to this.
They're all intertwined, are they?
Well, I don't see any other comments. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Is there anything that you need from us?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, well, our next meeting is October 20th, and the one after that, December 15th. Anything else any of the members want to add? Or anybody here for the good of the order?
Just thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you all for attending and being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See you
Have a
later.
good rest of your day.
Okay, I was wrong. No executive